Hello, friends. It's me again. I am coming to you with another crochet tutorial today. I kind of roll the dice between, do I want to do crochet? Do I want to do Tunisian? Do I want to do knit? And I just kind of roll the dice and go with whatever feels right at that time. So today it was a crochet stitch pattern that felt really comfortable and cozy for me. And so let's go ahead and dive in with what we're going to be making today. So this stitch pattern here is a lovely stitch pattern. Let me go ahead and zoom in. This is a lovely stitch pattern if you want to make something that's a little more rustic looking and something that's a little bit more sturdy and has a little bit more density to it. So you'll notice this is a very dense fabric, right? It's very stiff, it's not very flexible, and that's a good thing sometimes in crochet. So the reason this is because every time we work a row, we're working in one row below as well. So we're creating kind of a little sandwich layer of fabric. So if you're interested in making this stitch pattern and learning how to do this stitch pattern, I always find that it helps whenever I'm learning a new stitch pattern, or if I want to do a stitch pattern for, let's say I'm wanting to make a scarf. First of all, I need to check gauge, right? So this is a good way for me to check gauge and see how many stitches per inch I have in this specific combo. And it also gives me a chance to become familiar with the stitch pattern, so I'm not figuring out how to do the stitch pattern as I go. And then I get a cute little, piece of fabric cloth that I can either put in my bathroom, or I can, hang up on the wall, or even have kind of a reference library of this yarn and this hook. This is kind of what this, the yarn will look like when it's worked up. So there's a ton of reasons to do these types of, sit down and just play with yarn and learn a new stitch pattern. You can get inspired by this, or you might be doing this and in your head think, oh my gosh, I know exactly what I would want to make with this. And it just gives you another stitch pattern in your arsenal, in your little stitch tool bag, so that you can, if you're designing, you can easily whip something up. So that's enough chatting. I think that was a little long-winded, but a very good explanation on how to, what the benefits are of doing these types of things. Okay, so if you're wanting to make this, then you'll need some worsted weight yarn, or honestly any type of yarn you want. If you want to make a fingering weight, anything like a scarf, a DK, worsted, whatever you want to do. I'm just using worsted because I have a bunch of worsted and I need to work through it. And then you'll need a hook that is roughly in the same area of what's recommended on the ball band. So I have here a 5.5 millimeter for my worsted, and if you want to do worsted as well, just go ahead and grab a 5.5 millimeter. And then you'll need some scissors, so you can cut those ends when you're done. All right, let's get started. Got my yarn, got my hook, I've got my scissors. So what I'm going to do is pull out a tail here. And then for the first row, I'm going to chain a multiple of 2 stitches. So whatever size you're making this, just go ahead and chain a multiple of 2. Sorry, I had an itch on the back of my neck. So I've gone ahead and done 28. You might have different, you might have a different amount considering, you know, you're chaining for something a lot bigger than this. Let's say you're making a blanket or a scarf. All right, so now that I have my multiple of 2 stitches chained, I'm going to single crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4th chain from the hook, place in a single. So I've got my single crochet there in the 4th chain from the hook. Now I'm going to chain 1. Then I'm going to skip 1 stitch, so that next stitch here, don't go into here because this is a little elongated here, but that's not your stitch. That's not your next stitch. That's actually the one that you just worked out of. So I've got my chain 1. I'm going to skip this next chain, and then I'm going to a single crochet in the next. And that's going to be our repeat. So we're going to chain 1, skip the next chain, single crochet in the next. Chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the next. Chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the next. And it's okay to take your time here on this first row, because working into the chain foundation is always the trickiest part. So take your time. If you need to pause, go ahead and pause. And this yarn is wanting to split. Oh, like that. I don't know what yarn this is, to be honest with you. Some yarn I had in my stash. All right, so now we're at the end here, and you'll see that we have an obvious stitch here, and then this one might not be so obvious because that's the first stitch that you've done. But you want to make sure that you don't miss that last one, because it can sometimes be a little bit smaller, but it's still there. And usually you can tell because it'll have a little knot here from your slip knot. And that's when you know you're at your last stitch. All right, you can hold the tail end of the cast on and then pull here. All right, so let's look at what we have so far. So you should have something that looks like this. Not too crazy impressive yet, but it'll get better, I promise. So now let's go ahead and turn our work. So I've got my work turned here. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to single crochet in that first chain space. So now you might ask, where the heck is this chain space? And if you pull taut on your yarn or on your fabric that you've made here, you'll see that there's little spaces in between here. Now this one's a little bit bigger because I messed up and put 2 chains in there when the yarn was splitting, so ignore that. But you'll see there's little spaces where the yarn wants to separate, or the fabric wants to separate. That's where you're going to put those stitches. So let's tug just a little, not too much, and we've got our first space right there. So let's go ahead and place a single crochet in that chain space. Perfect. Now we're going to chain 1. Then we're going to skip the single crochet that's right here, and then we're going to single crochet in this chain space right there. All right, and that's going to be our repeat. So we're going to chain 1, skip the single crochet here, and then go into this chain space with a single crochet. Chain 1, skip that single crochet, go into the chain space, place a single crochet. Chain 1, skip, and place a single crochet in that chain space. And you're going to do that all the way down until you get to the end. Oop, my fingers went weird. Chain 1, single crochet in the chain space, chain 1, single crochet in that next chain space. And this is where the pattern really starts to zip, because you don't have to pay attention too much. It's a very easy pattern, but it produces a very beautiful fabric. All right, so I'm coming up on the end here. So now what I'm going to do is I've chained 1. There's no more chain spaces at the end over here. So I'm going to chain 1, skip the single crochet, and then I'm just going to chain or single crochet into that turning chain. Fantastic. Let's see what we have so far. All right, it's coming along. All right, so this row 3 is our next one, and this is going to be the one we repeat every single time to do this pattern. So let's get started. Let's turn our work. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and now we're going to single crochet in that first chain 1 space. And remember, we find that by gently pulling the fabric apart. So I've got my first one here, so I'm going to single crochet into that. Now what I'm going to do is chain 1. Oh, hold on, itch on my lip. Chain 1, and then I'm going to skip the single crochet, and then I'm going to single crochet into that chain space. So it's very similar to the last one. It's just a little bit different of a setup and ending. So chain 1, single crochet in that chain space, and we're going to do that all the way down. Chain 1, skip that single crochet, single crochet into the chain space. Did I chain 1? Yes. Chain 1, skip, single crochet in the chain space, chain 1, skip, single crochet in the chain space. Now I'm going to show you something here in a second. So I'm going to not do a repeat. I'm just going to show you how to read this fabric. So if we take a look at what we've done so far, I'm going to stick my finger right in there. We'll see that we've got some V's here, right? So we've got these V's, and we know those V's are single crochets. So if we look at our previous fabric that we've made, we can easily spot that single crochet because we just look for the V. So now you see we have a V right here. And if we look to the very top of that V, we'll see this here, which is another V. That's the top of our single crochet. So we have a V that goes down and up. And then if we follow that up a little here through this loop, we can find the top of our single crochet. So we're going to skip this one. So if you put your work down and you step away to maybe, get something out of your dog's mouth that he shouldn't have in it, he or she shouldn't have in it, or if you want a little snacky snack and you're like, oh my gosh, where was I? You can see here that we haven't done a chain yet because we've got this free stitch here. And then our next thing here is a single crochet. So I'm going to go ahead and chain. I'm going to skip the single crochet and then go into that space here and place a single. I'm going to do that all the way down till we get to the end. Now sometimes it can be a little tricky to find it, but if you just hold to the top, because we're skipping this, if you hold to the top of that next stitch over and pull a little bit, you can see there's that space, and you can just get your hook right in there. All right, so now I'm at the end again. So I'm going to do my little end pattern, which is going to be a chain 1. I'm going to skip that next single crochet, and inside of this turning chain, I'm just going to place a single crochet. And there we go. So you're going to repeat that row over and over and over again until you get your desired height of fabric. And I'm going to work some up off camera and come back and show you what it looks like. All right, so here's the fabric so far. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a bit so you can kind of see what's going on here. So this would be a fantastic stitch pattern for a very rustic looking blanket or a rustic looking cowl. It does have a tendency to be a little bit dense and compacted because you are working in a row below whenever you're working your next rows. So you can combat this by using a much larger needle than what's suggested on your ball band on your yarn. So for instance, I'm using a worsted weight here, and I've been using a 5.5 millimeter, which is roughly around the gauge that it suggests for a worsted. If I were to go up to a 6.5 or, up a little bit more than that, this fabric would be a lot less compact. But for the use case that I'm going to use this for, which is basically just a nice little cloth to have near my bathtub, I'm going to go ahead and keep this fabric a little bit more condensed because this will give me a really nice exfoliating surface. So if you want to go ahead and finish out your swatch, if you made it just how I did here, that would be a lovely addition to your bathroom towels and wash rags. I hope this video helped you. I hope the tips and tricks I gave you along the way help you not only in this swatch and in this stitch pattern, but throughout your whole crochet journey. If you like this video, make sure to hit like. If you want to see more content like this and hang out with me more, then go ahead and hit subscribe. It really helps the channel out a lot, and it encourages me to make more videos when I see that you guys are liking what's going on. Until next time, bye.